So we are here with Chris Thompson, aka Thommo. He's managed to get one of the kids into bed. So
Yes.
I've been emailing him before we set this meeting up, well, this podcast up, and he was saying that he was expecting his second child. So my first question was going to be, have you had that second child, or when's it due? So I already knew the answer to that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
2.5
I,
weeks ago.
yes, it was Wednesday, the 26th of Feb. So
Okay.
yeah, he's George now is what's he 2 weeks or 15, 16 days, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We actually said last night, just now at dinner, just going, we can't believe he's only 2 weeks, and it still feels like day one. It's just the whole fatigue blends into one very, very long day. It's like that film with is it George Clooney?
Yeah.
That whole film is one day. It feels
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
first 2 weeks is just one long day because we haven't been to bed yet.
So massive thank you for coming on the podcast, not just because we want to speak to you about your running, but also from the tiredness that you must be facing, actually sparing us some times where you could be in bed at this point in time. So
If it helps, I'm sat next to my bed. I'm just not in it.
What do we do if you fall asleep halfway through? Do we ring anyone or
Just leave me be, and then I'll wake up in 2 hours. We'll continue.
next ever episode of the podcast coming up
Yeah.
here, everybody?
There you go.
what we normally do with guests is we just ask you to introduce yourself. So if you could just
Okay.
introduce yourself, please.
My name's Christopher Thompson, as in like what I've done as well.
Yeah. So who you are, where you're from, what you've done.
So my name's Christopher Thompson. I was born in Cumbria, which not everyone knows about, but we moved around a lot. I actually lived in Solihull for a little while actually, but lived all over the place. Went to jump forward to Loughborough University, and then once I graduated, I've been a elite distance runner pretty much ever since then. And it's only been in the last 6 months I've retired. And during my time as an elite athlete, was lucky enough to live in America, travel the world, be part of many different brands, and win a few medals, and enjoy myself, and managed to keep. I think the best way I'd look at it is I managed to postpone adultism as long as I could. I think I put my mates among me to see when you're going to grow up, when you're going to enter the real world. Well, I'm here now, 2 kids, and I got to find a job.
So first question is, how did you get into running? Was it a natural fit for you? Was it something that you just always enjoyed?
No, definitely not. I didn't always enjoy it. I think so. My story very much when I was young was I was very sport based love. Like I wasn't an academic lover. I just loved anything that involved games and sport. I mean, when I say games, I mean board games. I mean computer. When I say computer games to an extent, I was actually one of those people that I preferred watching my brother do computer games rather than doing it because I didn't like the pressure of computer games. Which is quite applicable to as I grew up. Like I found the pressure cooker of certain situations quite overwhelming. So running actually helped bring that out. But my parents they just enjoyed sport. So I was very fortunate they would take me. I went to judo after school. I went to gymnastics. I tried tennis, cricket, every type of sport. And it was at school where running was kind of introduced to me. Off the back of that, my dad used to use running as a de-stressor. So my parents, obviously with 3 kids and young, so they started young, trying to get those moments where you're trying to download. Like we couldn't afford alcohol, so my dad would use running, and I remember I'd went out for a couple of runs with him just because that was the thing he did. And then through school, when I started running, it wasn't something I particularly loved. I preferred football, but it was the friendships. So I went to a club, Aldershot Club, because my PE teacher encouraged me, and it was all these different sports I enjoyed. I never found a bond with the people, and that's not to knock anyone. It was just when I went to the running club at Aldershot, there was something about the people and the common spirit that I found, and I found I almost found my place a little bit in myself, not just through running. So the running aspect, enjoyment, was kind of secondary, and I just found myself with a group of friends that I just loved hanging out with on a Tuesday, Thursday down at Aldershot. I started racing, and it was more about the social banter and just the enjoyment of going on a coach ride to wherever it was. And it kind of escalated from there because I then started making choices around university because of the friends and the running. I never imagined being an Olympic runner. People find that hard to believe. I was precocious in the sense I believed in my ability, but I wasn't precocious in the sense of I thought I'm going to be a really good runner, go to the Olympics, run really fast. I always felt like it was out of reach. So I just dealt with the here and now. And all I knew in that moment was I loved the competition, I loved winning, and I loved the friendships, and I loved all that. And I thought, and so when I went through uni, that was kind of, it felt like it was, when this is over, it will be over. So it's a long answer question, but that was kind of how running kind of entered my life. It was kind of, I was very fortunate. I never thought about the next step. It was just organically came through the love of the community, basically. I think the right word is.
We talk about it quite a lot on the podcast. The running community is the aspect that keeps us doing this podcast, because the people out there that reach out to us, that we speak to when we go to races, are the best people. Because I've never been a runner, only recently over the last 4 years started running, but I've never been embraced like I have with the running community. Even when I used to play football, yes, you have football, but you tend to stick to your team. Whereas the running clubs that I'm part of, you can go and spend time with one running club and go and run with another running club. So the community is absolutely amazing. That's one thing that I've always found with running is that aspect.
Do you think in your running life, let's say that, your point there about the fact that you never wanted to be, or never thought you would necessarily be, an Olympian, is that purely because you believed it helped you because you focused on the process rather than the outcome? Because I think a lot of people, they come into sports, whether that be football, and they go, I want to be a professional footballer, or they go, I'm a runner, I want to go and represent my country. Do you just think, you said you didn't handle pressure very well with things like playing computer games and stuff like that. Do you think that helped you in your career just by thinking, I am just enjoying myself?
Yeah, I think when you're young, in my experience, I can think of quite a few scenarios where I was put in situations which quite often either we avoid or people around us avoid putting us in that situation, when actually they're huge learning and developmental moments in your life. And so what I mean by that is things like, so with the computer game analogy, it was Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one, Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and I got to the final level baddie, and I had like 20 lives. And generally the computer games were kind of quite forgiving. And I literally kept dying. And my brother was watching me, and I got down to 1 life, and I just started crying. I was so desperate to complete this game. And I managed to do it. And that process of, seems at the time so like it's just a computer game, but in me it meant so much, and I found a way to get through it. But I took more pleasure watching my brother because I didn't have the pressure directly on me. And there were things like that through my career, that through running, that I was put in these positions and I had to either walk away or find a way to make it work. So another scenario was when I was 18, because obviously through running, one of the purest things about running is someone else can't do it for you. Yes, they can coach you. Yes, they can advise you. But to actually go through a pain barrier is all within yourself. If you stop pushing, you stop moving. It's as simple as that. And you have to walk away or drive home, whatever. And I ran 14:06 as a 5K. In a 5K when I was 18 years old, which nowadays doesn't seem as good with all the shoe technology. But at the time, I was ranked second in Europe as an under 20.
Wow.
Which was massive for me because I was still very much at the time more of a domestic, saw myself as a domestic runner trying to win county championships. And this year I had quite a development jump. And I went to the European Championships as a second favourite. And in an AW, there was all this publicity. Chris is off to get his medal. While I was there, I was one of the last events on the last day. And I was just so pent up, worried and nervous. And I completely psyched myself out. And I stood in the start line and just cried, just completely bawled my eyes out with nerves and fear. And I came second to last in the race. And I remember sitting in the car park, just felt every emotion you can imagine of fed up. And I thought, I'm never running again. That's it. I'm never doing this again. And I was sat with a guy called Dave Clark, who was one of the team managers, a legend of the running world. He's I think he's got the record for the most number of world cross appearances as a senior athlete, like 12 or 13 on the bounce made the world cross, which is incredible considering injuries and stuff like that. And he just spoke to me for like half an hour, 40 minutes and just calmed me down. And I went away and I thought, right, I'm not going to run for like 6 weeks and just leave. And I went on holiday with my family and I just completely forgot about it. And I said to myself, I've got two choices here, because only I could do this to myself. I could only ask myself, I either find a way to enjoy this and not do that again to myself, or I stop doing it. And I thought, I don't want to leave the friends I've made. I don't want to leave. And I went to, and this is, again, I'm slightly going off point, but I'm not. My mates don't realise how much of an impact they had on me, because I remember this trip. We went to the Isle of Wight. I hadn't run for 6 weeks and they acted like I hadn't been away. And we went to the Isle of Wight and had an absolute blast. I ran the 400 hurdles. I fell over and stacked it on the first hole. I rolled over, bruised my elbow, got up laughing, carried on running. Just did whatever events I wanted. I did the pole vault. I did long jump. And I just had a great time. And I've never sat down and told them, but they just, that whole trip, I could have easily have gone there and never gone back, because I just felt out of place or whatever it was. But it didn't. It was exactly what I needed. It took me back to why I loved doing what I did. And I just got back to work. And I thought, I'm never going to stand on the start line feeling that I'm well. It's not worth it. And I never have. Anytime I feel overwhelmed when I'm young, from all those experiences I've had, I've used two there, but there are many others where running has put me, and sport in general has put me in positions emotionally and physically where I've grown from it. And I've become a lot more, I see myself as much more of a can-do with anything. Whether I do or not is not the point. I start with a much more positive mindset that I can do this, you can. And there's people have stories all over the place of how they've applied it in their own world when it comes to illness, when it comes to achievement, anything. Running is such a personal journey and overcoming personal battles. And we can be forgiven to think that, and I feel like there's a real shift lately that running was lumped with a lot of other sports of about being the best, being an Olympic athlete, being an elite. And actually running is very different to a lot of sports. It's not. It's actually more inclusive than any other sport, really. That, yes, a lot of sports are, but running is so inclusive because there's so much you can personally get out of it. And so, yeah, I think to go back to your question of how that helped me in the short term, I think running became something where it came a personal growth journey, and the kind of aspect of not thinking about being Olympian was a good and a bad thing. I think there was a double-edged sword there, because I think in some ways that held me back because I almost took it too far and I didn't take myself seriously enough. Because when I look at the athletes I grew up around me, in particular Mo Farah, when I look back at our journeys as two athletes, he cottoned on to how good he was and how much he wanted it a good 5 or 6 years before I did. And I'm not remotely going to start going about me being on a par with him eventually. My point being is he got his stuff together a lot sooner than me. And so my career almost came a bit short-winded because I took too long to kind of grow up in my own mind. I was too busy trying to enjoy it. Whereas Mo was like, he was very much, I want to be better. And every action he did was, how can I be better? How can I do this? It was a very different journey. And I think it was a double-edged sword. I think in some ways it was a good thing that I thought only about that day, but I didn't think enough about just how good I could have been. And it just took me a lot. I mean, it wasn't until I was 29 before I really got going. And that's quite late for especially nowadays when you're seeing athletes like Phoebe Gill running 157 at the age of 17. I know she's an anomaly. You know, athletes can be a lot better a lot sooner if they have the right mindset. So,
is that something you regret though in
No.
any way? No, because I didn't come into, like, obviously nowhere near your standard of runner. I came into running probably early 20s and ran and obviously gradually got better. But I always think to myself, I don't know whether it's a feeling of regret, but a feeling of, I just wish I'd have started this sooner. And that thing with Mo obviously saying, he just cottoned on to earlier how good he was and wanted to do that. I mean, you've answered the question, it's a no. But I think I agree with your point that running gives you so much, and I just wish I'd have got into it earlier. I mean, you could probably see the sign behind me. I've run a mini athletics business, which is teaching children age 1 to 8 how to get into sport for the whole purpose of enjoyment. And I think that's one of my big motivators, is to get the children that come into the program into sport early, so they probably get that reward, because athletics and running does teach you so much, right?
No, it's a priceless life lesson, because through sport, the teacher is yourself.
Yeah.
That the person leading the lesson is yourself. And we all know, my kids are very young, so my eldest is only going to be 4 next week, but you still go through that process where even at the young age of every action you're doing is the parent or the teacher's leading it, the lessons, and helping them understand, helping them grow. But sport gives people the independence to learn from themselves, and you can't get away from yourself. But I think the one thing, like going back to your point of regret, I think there's two things to that, because I think a lot of athletes, I've noticed, one of the things I noticed well before I retired was, if you speak to any elite athlete, they'll talk about what they didn't achieve before what they did, and I mean bar none. And I always thought, but you've achieved this, you've achieved Olympic medals, and you realise that actually that kind of feeling of regret of I wish I'd done this is always there, because if you could turn back this clock and started earlier, like you said, or I'd cottoned on sooner, you'd have a different set of regrets, because that's the human instinct, isn't it? And so my feeling is, actually, if I'm actually happy with myself, with what I'm doing now, I can't regret how I've got here. And so in so many ways, one of the things that caused me to be quite late in sort of twigging was the fact I didn't take myself too seriously, which at the time might be a negative, but I tell you what, right now, that is just priceless, because I've retired happy because I don't take myself too seriously, and I just want to enjoy it. And I look back on things and think, well, could have done this, could have done that, but you know what, like, I didn't, and that's now a huge advantage, because I've been retired 6 months now, and I feel like I haven't stopped, and I feel like I've kind of had fresh life breath into me with doing lots of different projects, and my feet have not hit the ground with doing things, and I'm really enjoying that next chapter. And I think a different Thommo route could have ended up with me dwelling a lot more on things. I could be, an athlete could be, especially if athletics or running is taken away from you because of a bad injury or something. A lot of athletes do I've got a wife who was an Olympic athlete, and so I've seen her transition away and the pathway she's taken, and it did take her a while to get used to the fact I'm not a runner anymore. Whereas literally the morning I woke up after I decided to retire, the biggest smile on my face, and I was just ready to go. And so that was an advantage from that previous aspect of how I got there. So that's the way I kind of rationalize those two things. And while I think about it as well, for your own thought process when it comes to running, I do think running is a bit, I like to use the analogy of like a car. Of, if you've got a car that's 2 years old but has done 100,000 miles, it's going to act like it's got 100 miles on the clock. If it's a 20-year-old car but only done 10,000, it's going to act like a car that's only got 10,000 miles. It's more about the miles than necessarily the age of the car. And I've retired at the age of 43. And I'm not just saying this, I honestly believe that even though I've retired, I physically still could have run a PB for the marathon. I truly believe it. I've stopped for life reasons, for life choices. And so whenever people are, a lot of my friends have got back into running, or friends that have taken a lot of inspiration from me running quick in my 40s, I think people are starting to realize it's a mindset, it's a choice. A lot of the time, the reason we feel we can't do something because we got to it late is actually because just our lifestyle is not conducive. Like, that's my biggest challenge to running sub 210 is my lifestyle, not my age, not my mindset. It's I'm making different choices. I'm not dedicating the time to the recovery. So I think we can always, if we feel like it's within our power to make decisions to help ourselves to achieve something great, I honestly think the view of age and running has shifted a lot. I thought for a long time, when I got to 30, I thought someone waved a magic wand and I would be like unable to do anything. I thought like I'd literally be, because so many athletes retired at 30. I just thought at 30 that was it. It was like someone came along and went, "You're too old."
Ting,
Couldn't have
that's it
been more
now.
wrong.
ting, and that's it now. You can't run again.
Exactly. I honestly, because you're looking at history and the number of athletes who would stop, and it wasn't. It was because they were choosing a different path. It wasn't I remember Helen Clitheroe saying to me, she ran a PB at 39 when I was like early 30s, and I said, oh, how do you do that? She goes, well, I'm waiting for this aging thing to happen. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm just going to keep my head down. And I'm like, okay. And same with me. I just thought it's like I just stopped thinking about it, because as I tell you, so I know I'm doing a lot of the talking, but like
it's fine.
We want you to talk.
Yeah,
the listeners are fed up of us. Carry on.
I just want you to be able to ask your questions, but there was I was on our team when I was based in America. We had Kenyan-based athletes, well, not based, but they were Kenyan athletes that trained in our team. And this girl called Sally Kipyego, who's an Olympic medalist, she won Olympic medals while she was on our team, coached by the same coach as me, Mark Rowland, who you may know. And I used to pick her brains a lot. One of the things she used to laugh at was she would do things like her steady runs were way slower than anyone else. And so a lot of, I don't want to say insecure, but it was a lot of us other athletes that were a bit more insecure would run fast when we shouldn't have run fast, and therefore didn't have the energy to run fast when we needed to run fast. She took her recovery as a sign of confidence, but also she would say, you Westerners, you're so wrapped up around age and all these barriers. Just let go. Half of us don't even know because we don't think about it. And I was like, you're so right. Like we think something and make it our truth. When in reality, it's only our truth because we think about it and let it be that. And actually I started to let go a lot more around the fact at the time I was like 31, 32, and I stopped thinking about it. And then ironically, I went on for another 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it was. And it's only because I'm just tired and wanted another kid that I stopped. So,
you talk about that 18-year-old on the start line.
Yes.
And then you've come to, in 2020 or whatever, because it was Tokyo in 2020, running at the Olympics. So I know you talk about the transition from that person and enjoyment, but how did that feel on the start line? And Ben's going to talk about his memory of you probably in a minute as well.
Yeah.
Getting to that point of what was that feeling like? And I suppose because the world was completely different at that point anyway, at Tokyo 2020. So what kind of feelings did you go through then?
Specifically at the Olympics?
Yeah.
So it's funny. So my two Olympic experiences, 2012 and then 2021, were very different for very different reasons, for obvious reasons, because of we had one pandemic and one home Olympics. But talking about Tokyo, we had the race. The marathon was actually held in Sapporo. So we were in Tokyo base for there, where the actual track in most of the sports were held, but they put the marathon in Sapporo because of heat worries. So we were in this quarantine hotel and we had barely any way of moving and escorted to dinners. And so it was kind of surreal insofar as that it was actually quite a restrictive and hard work to prepare for this. But at the same time, everyone was so relieved that we were getting to do it, because for a lot of athletes, most athletes had qualified for the Olympics before the pandemic had hit. Yeah. So they'd been sat, like the American team was announced, like I think the trials were like a month before the pandemic. So they had been waiting for ages, whereas for us, we obviously had our trials during the pandemic. So it ended up being a very cool experience, but it was I don't know how to describe it. It was almost like a relief we were getting to do it in a lot of ways. And so I felt like a lot of people were kind of forgot about the fact that this is the height of our sport and seriousness, and actually we're there to make the most of this, enjoy it. And we're very privileged to get to do this. So it had that kind of a feel. It almost, amongst us as a team, we all just felt very lucky and privileged to get to do it. And it ended up, because of that, it ended up being the most brutal race I've ever been involved in, because I think it had the highest number of dropouts. I think that in terms of starters to finishers was, in terms of Olympic history, I think I'd have to be fact checked. I think it was one of the worst conversions rate, because it was crazy.
I remember watching it and thinking there's a lot struggling at this race.
It was but this is where, in hindsight, we've all looked back. I think there was a lot athletes couldn't prepare for,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that made it really tough. And I think everyone got found out. And there was one athlete who had, in panic, had defaced their vest, like cut holes in it, and you cannot do that as part of the rules. So they were like being accosted at the start, and so there was a bit of panic around little things of people going, "Oh my word!" That you're kind of not really fully feeling prepared. And I ended up not getting any drinks, which didn't help for one reason or other. So I ran the whole race, and then I did go to the medical tent after, and it wasn't pretty in there. There was some grown men, making noises which akin to almost like I was where I was 2 weeks ago, with people were giving birth. It was just grown men just reduced to tears. But it was kind of a weird one, in terms of, we were very, very grateful. But I think for the one or two that kind of were able to pair and switch on, came away with the goods. But it was cool. For me personally, I was just so proud and happy to be there, and it felt like a real icing on the cake to my career. I think it justified a heck of a lot. I mean, I've been doing running for 29, 30 years. And I think it gave me a lot of closure on the 8-9 years of injuries. I'd had some pretty horrific injuries through my career, and I kept sticking at it, and I was stubborn enough to keep going. So it represented a lot of justification. Is that the right word? A lot of pride,
Hard
a lot
work.
of everything. Yeah, it just felt like no bad run would dampen what I felt at that moment. I just thought, and it wasn't a great run, but I didn't care. I just was so happy, and I felt so proud to have put together the career I'd put together, despite the challenges I'd faced and the journey I had. I just felt a lot of pride.
And I think that segues quite nicely into one of my top moments watching athletics on the TV, really. There's 3 occasions I can count to where I've been reduced to tears watching something on television. And I think one was Kipchoge breaking 2.
Yeah.
The other was Calvin Kipton in Chicago.
Yeah.
With the world record. And the other was watching you at Kew Gardens. So when Rob said you was coming on, I was like, how? Because Rob books the guests, and I was like, how have you done that? But I want to talk about the flooding of emotion that came out of you when you crossed the finish line at Kew Gardens. And I felt that, and me and my wife were watching it, middle of the pandemic, Kew Gardens, you crossing the finish line. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there was necessarily a favourite in that race. You certainly probably wasn't that favourite.
No, not at all.
So that outpouring of emotion, was that you saying to yourself, like, or realising, look, I'm going to the Olympics, this has all been worth it? Or was it just, God, I've finished the race and that was tough?
I think we all have that emotion when we finish a marathon, that's for certain. I'll try and my best to explain without getting emotional still, because I can't go back.
If you want to get emotional, that'd be really good for the Instagram reels.
Good for
so feel free to get emotional.
We'll blame it on the lack of sleep.
Yeah, lack of sleep.
Yeah. I don't know where do I begin? I mean, for those that don't know, that with the Kew Gardens, because it was, like you say, it was Olympic trials. Like I became a dad for the first time on the Monday. And the other bit that you guys may not know about is so 8 weeks before that, I was sat in a hospital bed, and I just I had an accident where I was moving house, and we obviously with all the restrictions and stuff, so which made it difficult. So we had my dad was moving the lorry, and I can say him, I feel bad saying it because it destroyed him at the time, but he reversed the van, and it was my fault. Put my hand behind the van, and nearly lost my hand. Just shattered it. Just shattered 2 bones in my hand. And my dad thought, all he heard was his crunch, and then saw me running off screaming, and he thought I've taken his hand off. And at that point, I was doing everything I could to kind of manage the fact that I was trying to make the Olympics. We had a kid coming. We were moving. There was a lot of going on, and I just remember sat in the hospital bed, looking at the diary, going, I've got 8 weeks to the Olympic trials. and I'm sat there with a hand that's like, I'd have to show you the pictures. That I honestly, at that point, sitting there, I rang my coach, and I just rang him and said, "I'm so sorry, mate. I've ruined it." And I went. The guy, my kind of my angel, I guess it sounds a bit corny, but a guy called Gavin Bridgestock came into the hospital and said, "Hi, Chris. You may not know who I am, but I raced with you back at university in Scotland in the boosters." And I said, "You're kidding me?" And he goes, "Yeah, race with you, and big fan, and we're going to sort you out, sort your hand out," because he happened to be on shift that night. And I said, "Yeah, I've got the Olympic trials in 8 weeks." He goes, "Okay, look, I'm going to sort your hand out and then give you try and see what we can do about getting you back running." Because obviously the issue was it was an open wound. So I couldn't, the issue was infection, because obviously your hand is not running, but the issue was infections and stuff like that. So I had the operation, and I said, "What do you think?" He said, "Ideally, it'd be 3 weeks. You can't sweat, you can't run, you have to be so careful." He said, because it was snowing at the time, if you fall and re-break this, because he put plates in, implications for your hand for life are not good. A, you don't want to fall on it, and B, you don't want to get it infected. But he said, "My suggestion is 3 weeks, but I know I have to say the right thing." But he said, "Look, I've done a good job on your hand." I gave it a week or 10 days, and I said to my coach, "I've got to try. I've just got to try." And I just went into this weird place for 6 weeks where I just believed. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I just believed I was Superman. I just made myself believe that anything was possible. And all those years of setbacks, when I had my Achilles, I was told in 2014, "You'll never run a marathon again." And I'd spent 2-3 years trying to get back going. So many issues, and I knew this was my last chance, and I just didn't want to give up on myself. And I knew that Gem and I both knew that it would mean everything to both of us, the sacrifices and everything. And we didn't exactly know when Theo was going to be born. So when we got close and we knew effectively he was going to be induced a week before the race, we both, even though it was a big moment for us to both become parents for the first time, bless Gemma, we were both like, this is a, yes, we're going to be parents, but we've got a race on that Friday. And it was just one of the most weirdest weeks of my life, where I just was bottled everything up. You see your kid for the first time, and you're controlling your emotions. You're trying to get through those first few days, and you're almost bottling it, suppressing it. Every little thing was making me feel so emotional. I knew I need to just kind of bottle it, do the right thing. And I got into the morning of the race. I felt so tired. I knew I was in good nick. I was so tired. I just wanted to lie on the floor and sleep, and everything was making me feel so emotional that Gemma and Theo were at home, and I should be there. And there's guilt there. There's all this stuff. And I got half an hour into the race, and I was knackered, and I can't handle this pace, and I just eased off the throttle to give myself a chance, because I knew if I kept going like I was going, I was going to dig a hole, and I couldn't handle it. And the three guys, Dowie, Mo and Ben Connor, were all capable of running the time, and they were gone. And I spent the next hour watching the Olympic dream disappear, and all I kept saying to myself, it's not over. Keep giving yourself a shot. Just don't give up on it yet. Something might happen. And then with half an hour of the race to go, the guys at the front started to struggle, and I don't know, it was like I just went into a different place. And when I for the last half an hour, once I caught them, I was on this conveyor belt of just ride it. Nearly pulled my hamstring on the last lap with about a mile to go. I got cramp, and I was like, no, not now. I finished, and I still kind of struggled to explain the emotion of I finally let go on my dad. I'm going to the Olympics.
Everything come on top of you.
Everything. It was like life and sport just went boom. it was my version of scoring at Wembley for England in the World Cup final. I will never ever. It was sorry.
It's okay.
It's like I peaked in life, and I'll never. I can only say to people that we can all have that kind of scoring at Wembley feeling, you know, because I've had better races, I've performed better than that, I've done bigger things in my career. So it's not necessarily always about the performance. It was just I'd overcome so much. I honestly felt like at the start of that race, I was stood at the bottom of the biggest Everest I've ever faced when it comes to sport, life, and everything. And I climbed it. And the only reason I climbed it is because I knew from history through my life of the only way to see if you can climb it is if you A, just give it a go, and B, you just don't give up. That's the only way I've got any chance of getting to the top of this. And the fact I achieved it, it was the most unbelievable thing in my life. It's the biggest thing I've achieved that I didn't believe was possible, if that makes sense. And I just finished with so much emotion to the point where I had no clue anyone was watching. So I ran off to have a little moment in the corner, and literally someone came and went, "Your finish has gone viral." And I went, I don't, was there cameras? Was there, I had no idea. I literally had no idea. And I rang, my wife was actually, had to rush to hospital with Theo, not for bad reasons, for an appointment. So I couldn't get hold of her. And I rang my coach, and we just cried. And then it was just, the surrealness happened. I had Sophie Rayworth from the BBC News contact me saying, "You're going to be headlined." So that night I was a headline on the news. I was like, what? Sky Sports came to my house. I was like, I felt like sporting royalty for like a week. It was like I had my 5 minutes of fame. But the thing that I got from that was this, like I say, this Wembley moment, this Everest moment that will live with me forever. And it's the thing that always makes me feel like that I can do anything if I just give it a go. And I may not always achieve it, but what if I can? What if I do get that feeling again? It's like, it will be tough to top, but I felt you name that emotion, I felt it that day. And it was still, and I've taken ages and I apologise, but
Don't worry, absolutely
do
don't worry.
not apologise.
So I had my agent in that pandemic thing, you were allowed one person to accompany you for drinks. So we had to there was so much protocol around it because of the COVID bubbles you had to form. So I had my agent, Mike, was the person that did the testing and was allowed to give me the bottles. So every athlete was allowed that, effectively +1. And I just thought of another thing. Well, two funny things from him. One was he was my only teammate there. So he was giving me bottles and then running across the other side of the course to cheer me on. And he pulled his hamstring between shuttles. And he was panicking if he could get back across in time to give me the drink. So he was like, literally, he was in pieces by the end. But we got back to the car, and it was one of those most purest moments after everything. I'd done all the interviews and I was going back, and I then was like, right, I need to get home. We went back to the car, and we just walked back in silence. And it was like we were both, I don't know, we just know when you're in that place of just pure happiness when you don't need to say anything. And we sat in the car, and he turned to me and he said, "Have you seen that scene in Only Fools and Horses?"
In the car, when the Robin Reliant starts shaking.
When he said about when they said, how much did we make? And they start going, "Oh, we made whatever it was, million." He goes, and he said, "Do you want to go first or shall I?" And I said, "Should we go at the same time?" And we just went mental in the car. I don't know if we quite made the car shake, but it was just like, it was just felt so amazing to have that moment. And then for, people like that, who Mike is such a good friend. And then when I got home and I saw Gemma, we just,
baby, there you go, he's the baby.
Yeah. By the way, here's Theo, you're a dad. And then that night, it was funny because that night I was like acting like I was Superman again. And I was like, "Gemma, you go to sleep, I got this. I'll order a Domino's and I've got this, don't you worry." I got no sleep that night because he was up all night. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I forgot everything. Jim had a good night's sleep, and I was just like up all night. I think I had one beer just as a kind of a celebration thing to myself, and just doing all the napping, doing all that. And I still to this day haven't recovered because I was so tired. Like I think it was about a week later, I literally, I became that dad that falls asleep at Christmas. We were at I can't remember what it was in the garden. I was just there and I just fell asleep, just like absolutely screwed. But it was, yeah. Hopefully, I've sort of done the justice explaining myself, but
Absolutely.
it's still makes my emotion so raw when you say, Ben, like that you felt like that, because it means so much to hear people took that from it, because it did genuinely meant so much to me. I was at the podium 5K the other day, and someone came up and said, Chris, like that Kew Gardens moment, just I still watch it now. There's another kid that told me that they rewatched it back the other day, and I was like, it just means the world when people say that to me, because it just adds to the emotion. I mean, it really is amazing, because it was just bring a Wembley World Cup final. We lift the cup. I mean, it's the football analogy is about as good as I can do.
I think first, like, thank you for being so raw and unfiltered with the answer to the question. I think that obviously is something that the listeners, if they haven't seen it, can go back and watch, because I think the emotion coming out of you now explaining it gives you what I think I certainly felt when I watched it, and a lot of people would have felt when they saw, was it kind of, you've summed it up like it's that feeling that I think you can do anything if you put your mind to it, or if that thing of like, how bad do you want something? And there will have been people that maybe have watched it, or maybe not runners, when it did go viral, they've looked at the story and that moment could have kick-started their running journey. And that does so much for the running community, but also for runners. They need that one moment to get started, and I think that will have obviously inspired a lot of people. And I think further, when they're listening to this discussion, they might have a race coming up in a few weeks' time where they're thinking, oh, I missed a few weeks training the other week with a bit of a cold, I can't do it. I've been in that position. I've given up on marathon plans. Manchester gone 2 years ago. I had 2 weeks in bed pretty much with an illness, and I went, sod it, can't do it. Hearing someone like you say that, I think you can take so much from it, that just keep trying, because you can overcome anything. And even in a race, don't give up in the race, because as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, there's always that possibility. So thank you for sharing it with us,
Right.
because I think it has helped a lot of people, and should have helped a lot of people, and will continue to help them if they keep going back and watching it.
Thank you. No, it's a very, I think that's the thing that I hope it does do, is that we're all innately capable of a lot more than we realize. Personally, I think we really are. I think we are our own biggest motivators and self-disciplined people, and actually a lot that kind of question of, do I even start or give it a go, is more powerful than we realize. And I think the more you overcome personal challenges and battles, the more body of work and history of that you can look back on and go, well, I did that, so that means I must be able to do this, because that's what elite runners are doing all the time. So when you mentioned being ill, a lot of the time an elite runner, especially when they've been around a while, will look back at times in their mind of when they managed to overcome an illness or overcome an injury in a short amount of time to help inspire them in that moment. But you only get that kind of inspiration from history by doing it. So by using that what if kind of card on yourself, what if I prove to myself I can, it will only add to the fact you'll do it again and again, and it becomes a repetitive thing. And I think that kind of battle within a race, or a kind of, I don't want to use the word slog, but times in marathons where I've kind of almost just slogged my way through scenarios mentally and physically, that at the time you struggle to find the positives. But I know now through those moments of actually the gratitude you give yourself by getting out the other side of it and finishing is so huge, to know you've survived even when on a bad day. I've had a terrible London Marathon and terrible New York Marathon, and I actually look back on those days with more fondness because I didn't quit on myself. Because you're not failing anyone. No one's gonna, if you don't finish a marathon, no marathon god's gonna come and say, how dare you. No one's gonna frown at you. It's only yourself, your own kind of judgment of yourself that's gonna you're gonna be left with. So by constantly battling with yourself to try and overcome your own kind of judgment in a way to go, you know what, I know I'm tough and I know I can keep going. It's that kind of self-esteem with self is the most powerful tool I think anyone can have, especially today with the way that the world is, that we have way more access to other people's opinions and information than we've ever had. And I think that's quite a tough thing for us to kind of handle. Like we joked before we came on about, we used to have 4 channels and we all kind of watched the same thing. And so we all were relatively uncontactable past a certain point, because no one liked to ring a landline after sort of 9 o'clock because it might wake everyone up. No one does that anymore. I'll ring them at 10. It's a mobile. If it's turned off, it won't disturb them. So we're always contactable. There's a lot there for us. And I think it's even more important in ourselves to go than ever before, to go be strong within self, have that self-esteem strength to handle anything, and so that we can convert. Because it's all well and good. I saw something recently about, because I think about it now because I have kids, about bullying at school, and it's becoming a lot more of a thought. How am I going to help Theo and George go through childhood? And I was thinking, and it was talking about how you deal with bullies and how you actually don't, and how you kind of embrace it in a way of, if someone says, I don't know, they were using an example of, oh, I don't like you, goes, that's fine, that's your prerogative, and you use that. But the only way you can act like that with bullies or information is if you have strong self-esteem within yourself, and you're strong and you're happy within self. You can't start there. You can't start with that kind of comment. You've got to build that inner strength first. And I think it's become more and more relevant in my life how running has, without really thinking about it, has done that. And by running a marathon, you do become stronger in yourself, and you become more empowered because you've battled yourself. So battling yourself when you're extremely tired is easier than someone calling you a name, in my opinion. It's just way harder to battle yourself. And so you just become, it's never perfect, and we don't like it. And it does, I feel like it makes it a little bit easier just to deal with that level of information that we're having to deal with. And I don't know, this may be an age thing, but it probably is. And it probably is a generational thing, but I feel like the news is way more negative than it used to be. Yeah. I feel like it is. Because I remember my dad, when I was a kid, he was watching like whatever it was, 8 o'clock news, whatever it was. And I said to him, Dad, this is boring. And he says, don't knock it, Chris. Boring news is good news. And I thought, yeah, good point. Like, well, I say, listen to me, good news. I was like a teenager. I didn't know that. At the time, that's a complete exaggeration truth. I didn't say good point at all. I was too young to think that. But it is, as a grown up, I realised it is a good point. Whenever we ever watched the news or seen something and gone, that's boring, because it doesn't sell, it's not sensationalised. And so I think running is more than ever, I think people find it as a tool to challenge themselves, take them out of their comfort zone, and do all these amazing things, which and I just, one of those, and again, I'm going off tangents and I apologise, so just do stop me. But
it's fine.
One of the things I love on marathon day, and I saw my mum do this, is the number of athletes. I'm thinking of London Marathon, walk around with pride with their medal for the next 2 days. Yeah, I love that. Like, they're literally, it's like a shield of badge of honour of, like, to see people walk around. I've run a marathon, and the buzz that. And I saw my mum; she just walks around for a week with it, and it's like she probably slept with it. I don't know. Like, my dad didn't say, but it's like, how cool is that to do something? How many things in life do we do in work or anything where we get a medal and then walk around and it's accepted as a badge of honor. I've done this. There's not many things. I can't think of anything in life where you do a good deal at work. I'm going to wear this medal because I've just struck a deal with, I don't know, Samsung or someone. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? No one, you get a pat on your back from your boss and then right, where's the next deal? Probably. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a real, and then there is this stigma that I see jokes where people go, oh, they get annoyed because people have done it or wearing a badge into work. And it's all because they didn't do it. So it's kind of, it's not, it's a jealous thing. It's not really, it's like, yeah, but that's because you haven't put yourself out there to do it. So, but I'm wearing a medal. Don't worry about it.
Did you get a medal for Kew Gardens?
Yeah. Do you know what I got? I got a bonsai tree.
Ooh.
And it's still in the bathroom. It's dead, but it's but we got, because of the Tokyo link, we all the medalists got bonsai trees, and I felt bad actually because my uncle is really good at looking after them. I should have given it to him, but it was in my bathroom. It didn't survive.
Bonsai trees are notoriously bad to look after, I think, because we had a bonsai tree and we went to Australia for our honeymoon and we had a house sitter and came back and he was, oh yeah, great, but bonsai gone. Yeah. Devastated.
Well, that's a bit better. I mean, trees are a lot less guilt. My coach, rest in peace, John Nuttall, bless him, passed away last year, bless him. But he went away and he charged me looking after his fish in his garden. He had a pond out the back, and I hadn't been for a couple of days. I went and the fish were like literally gasping right by the filter, like, and I was like, oh my god, and I panicked, cleaned the filter, cleaned the pot, and got it all like. And fed them and stuff, and they made it. But I was like, he went away, and I've nearly killed all these flipping fish. That was nearly the worst house sitting experience of my life. I was like, oh
you
my
had one
God.
job.
Oh, yeah, one job, and I've killed his three. And they were big fish as well. They were big
carps, like carp things.
I think I'm not a fish expert, but I think one of them was a carp. Yeah, I was going to say carp, but I can't remember. He's moved. The family have moved from there now, so I don't know. I'll have to ask these kids what they were. I don't know what they were, but yeah.
So with your newfound, I was going to say extra time on your hands with retirement,
you haven't. None of that.
You're not going to be looking after fish, getting any fish, no? Teaching the kids how to have some responsibility.
No. My wife jokes about having a dog. We love dogs. I had a dog not growing up, but later in my life, and we'd love it. But honestly, like we've only just got into having 2 kids, but it is mental. This goes back to what I was saying before about how life now. I'm doing things, and there's comments like, "Oh, you're never not on." So, like a lot of the projects I'm working on, and a lot of things I'm doing, there's almost like an expectation that you're always available, and it's great in some regards. It's not like a 9 to 5 in an office. But it does mean a lot of the things I'm doing, especially with sport, because when sport is largely done, weekends. And weekends is when it's used to be kind of family time.
Family time, yeah.
So it's like I said, my feet, I'm touching around with lots of projects. As you guys mentioned, I'm doing this podcast with Paula, which has been fantastic, with On, the company I've been sponsored by, working with, lots of stuff like that. I do coaching. I do a lot of things. I love it all. I'm now a dad of 2, and it's literally... all I can think is of like silly quotes. Like I forget the name of the guy. I've seen this clip of this SAS guy that's like almost like a motivational speaker, and there's just this clip of him going, tired, good, fatigued, good, stressed, good, overworked, good. But in a sense of like, rather than, because we interviewed like Steve Peters, the chimp paradox guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how that chimp of like, when we get nervous or stressed about something, it's not about pushing those emotions away. It's about embracing them to make them work for you.
Yeah.
So when you're nervous or stressed, it goes, well, yeah, I am. You accept it. And then how do you use that kind of chimp, if that's how he describes it, into being a powerful thing? So if you're nervous, well, okay, well, how do I use those nerves? If I'm stressed, how do I use that stress? And so it becomes like it becomes an empowering thing. So hence why I say things like it's good. It's like, well, yeah, because that analogy of you'll miss it when it's gone. So that chaos, like in 20 years, when you do see those things where people talk about, oh, kids won't want to know you when they're grown up, and then you'll miss it and you'll miss the carnage. And whether that's true or not's not the point. It just makes you go, you know what? I'm not living today to survive to when I retire and everyone's older. I want to enjoy this now, because I don't want to work and live for retirement. I want to just enjoy everything I'm doing now. It sounds corny, but I just don't want to wish days away. I don't want to wish things away. And so I kind of, whenever I feel overwhelmed or whatever, I just say to myself, good, it's better than not and being bored or whatever. So it's kind of, it's silly, but it's...
I mean, it reminds me of a conversation I had with my wife this morning, actually, about my father-in-law. He's 70... I think he's 70, 71, and he's obviously well retired, but he's on the train to London for jobs on board of directors. He's doing this and that, and he's like disappointed because he doesn't get the gigs. And it's like, you're supposed to be retired, Steve. Nah, he's not retired.
Well, you look
no
at
such thing.
Well, this is the thing, like, because my dad's 68, right? And he retired at 55. And he will keep saying things like to me, he goes, yeah, I'm 68. And he's like, I feel old. But then I look at every American president for however long, like Trump's, what is he, 78? Is Trump 78? Biden was 81 before. Leaders of the world are a lot older than retirement age or state pension age of whatever it is now, 67, 68. These leaders are a lot older. And so often we have this landmark figure and think of it as being old. In reality, there's a lot of people out there, like you say, you say father-in-law is out there just like, just fighting and scrapping like they're 20-year-olds. And I saw this thing earlier today. So Bear Grylls was being interviewed, and did you see this? You sat back so Bear Grylls was interviewed, and he said, oh, so you're 50? And he goes, no, I'm not 50, I'm 25%. And they were like, 25%? He goes, yeah. He said technology is moving at such a rate that he believes that people will live a lot longer. And he says in his mind and body, he feels like he's at 25%. He may have to reset and go again, but he feels like he's got a lot more. He's only just getting going, and he's got a lot more to give. And he's going to be 51 this year, and he described himself as 25%. He's not 50. And I just thought it's a really interesting, good way of putting it. It's another way of saying to us, to him saying to himself, and how I think is like, again, it re-emphasizes that thought process that the now, or what we're doing now, is awesome, and we're not surviving today for that retirement age or that thing that we think, everything will come together when I hit pension age. It sounds deep for someone who's 43, but it just re-emphasizes for me just to enjoy the moment. Plan for the future and look back with fondness, but just enjoy the moment and live for the day, because it really is, today is really precious and very, very corny. And I think that's how a lot of the time with these tough things, I always come back to the next step. And that's how I feel like I've got a lot of these Kew Garden experiences at these Olympic trials. A lot of these successes have come through me just taking the next step in front of me. Because if I'd have, using the Kew Garden example, if I'd have let that emotion of the Olympics is slipping away dominate my mind, I'd have stopped. Because I'd have gone, I've lost it, because I'm thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. And I think that's why I think about it more now I've retired from running, because running was always about the next race. Now I've retired, I'm entering a career, and I have to plan slightly differently. So hence why you're unfortunately getting all these things I'm saying now, because I'm thinking about it a bit more, because my life's changed a bit, and it's not running, it's a bit more kind of job orientated and what have you. So, it's a very interesting kind of time at the moment, and I do enjoy it. And we'll see where things are in 10 years, but I'll be at 25% in 10 years, as according to Ben. So what am I now? 20%.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've got plenty of time to go with anything that you've got coming up. You talk about your retirement and what you're doing in now. So you're doing the podcast. How are you finding doing that? So speaking to people about their careers, are you finding it enjoyable? I know you work alongside Paula Radcliffe. How are you finding that?
So what our podcast actually is, what it started out is it's a 16-week plan through to a marathon.
Okay.
In this case, we've followed the 16 weeks leading into London Marathon. So we've used each week to kind of discuss and interview people relevant based on where you, on that particular week phase into your marathon build up. So this week we're going to be interviewing someone who is relevant to 5 weeks leading into the marathon, which is a big heavy block. So we've had, excuse me. So at the beginning, for the first 4 weeks, we were basing a lot of the interviews around kind of shoe tech and planning and how to structure training. And then we've brought in like people like Steve Peters and physio Steve Cram, that coaches that are relevant to that kind of stage of training. So it's been a 16-week kind of sort of a training partner through a podcast, almost without specific sessions. It's just trying to give like tidbits and advice around training for a marathon, but it's green, so hopefully people can sort of use it for any marathon build up. It's just this one has kind of mirrored the London Marathon, so we will have our last one the week of the London Marathon and a bit of a wrap party. But I've loved it, and I tell you what, it's been we've had a few guests where I'm literally meeting royalty, and I'm thinking this is quite literally I say literally not British royalty, but that they're American kind of in a couple of weeks, and I'm a bit like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, like in a nice way of like, wow, this is cool. Like Steve Peters, the chimp paradox, I was literally, the first time I spoke to him was through the podcast, so it is quite surreal.
Fantastic book, by the way. So
it's amazing,
and it's a similar kind of feeling that we get when we're speaking to the likes of yourself. Because you are running royalty. So everybody I've spoken to, I've said to them, who having Chris Thompson on the podcast, as soon as I said your name, they're like, "Wow, have you managed to get him on the podcast?" So well, I suppose we're a lot lower key in regards to the podcast. You've got people like Paula Radcliffe and Steve Cram and people like that.
Are you saying I'm not as good as Paula Radcliffe?
Wow, yeah, pretty much. But having you on there, having you on the podcast is like having royalty. So I can completely appreciate what you mean when you're speaking to these people. You're thinking to yourself, I don't want to make a fool of myself, which probably am at the moment in time. But it's a crazy thing into that you're actually speaking to people that you've seen on television, you've seen running, you've seen that I'll shut up now.
Thank you. That's really kind, because it is a window into something that's it's like sit down at a dinner table without but virtually. But that's one of the good things around the internet and like this kind of Zoom stuff we've got. But thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, because like I go back to, I don't take myself too seriously, so I don't see things that when people say nice things, I don't see myself as that. I just see myself as a guy that, because I think running humbles you. You can't run fast and have this ego, because you have to respect the challenge of what you're trying to do, and because running kicks you in the balls so much, you have to respect the challenge and fight that you can't. It's very, I mean, Inga Brixton's the closest thing we've got to like running arrogance, and I mean that in a complete respectful way. It's confidence, actually. But it's difficult to find runners with real arrogance, and I think that's where it sort of keeps us humble, keeps us grounded, because you're one race away from top of the world and one race away from hitting rock bottom. So thank you, but it is cool. I mean, I will see who else, because they talk about, do you know who else we had Harry Judd from McFly.
Oh yeah
But we're in the studio with him, which was really cool.
I've got a question for you, talking about royalty. What's it like to do a podcast with Paula Radcliffe, and do you think she'd be happy to come on to this podcast?
I knew that's where he was going.
I could ask.
Could you? If you could ask, that'd be brilliant. Even if she says no, if you'd ask her just to put us on the radar, that'd be. Do
you know the biggest challenge with her is she's so busy. She's often.
We can do it anytime during the night, day, anytime.
I will ask for you. Don't you worry. Just as long as that means it doesn't cut out our one.
No, definitely not. Definitely
she jumps
not.
ahead.
No, definitely not.
Paul, me and Paul have been friends since I started running. Okay. Pretty much. So, which is really nice. So Paula was, she, when I first started making teams, she was, so when you talk about royalty, so when I first made teams, I was literally because of World Crosses, you're on the junior team. You also have the senior team as well. So I'm literally going to these events, and Paula Radcliffe's there, and your John Browns are there, and all the senior team are there, and you're sharing a hotel, you're sharing dinners, even though I'm running in the junior event. It was cool. And so, and the thing about Paula was she was so friendly to everyone. Even though she was good as she was one of the seniors that made an effort with all of us as juniors. And I always remembered it because there were some individuals that weren't so responsive. And I always clocked that. And so hence now, whenever I'm around younger athletes, I always try and make myself open to conversations or help at anything, because I didn't like the fact when seniors didn't help, because that made it for me, it felt harder to adjust and to grow. And I think for junior athletes, it's really important that the seniors kind of interact and help them. And Paula was one of that. So I went to Loughborough University and she was there, and her husband, Gary, who was still running at the time, was always very helpful to me with tips. And he gave me one of the biggest game-changing advice in my whole career. Was I used to run all my runs with stereos, headphones. Excuse me. And I was on a run and he just yelled at me, get those, well, not quite in this language, bit more blue, but get those things out of your ears. And I would struggle to go for a run in being in my own head, because I would always have music, and I never wore music ever again. And that's when I talk a lot about mental strength, was because I stopped using music as a gateway to distract from the struggles of running. It's not I'm against it. It's just I found quite a lot of empowerment and through not having music and little things like that. He would give me little bits of advice. And then Gary and Paula were always kind of, yes, they were off doing great things, but they were always approachable, always good friends. And during 2012, when it was really tough for her, we both had a tough time during 2012, and we kind of confided a lot in each other. And she's always been very, good. And then when I retired, we talked about doing the podcast a lot, but she just was so keen to kind of help me with next steps. Like, she'd had help from Crammy and other people, and she just sort of took me under her wing a bit. Such an awesome lady. And I just very, very grateful to her that she's kind of taken me on this journey, because she's taken me, because she's a huge athlete with a huge following and huge success. And, all through my career, she's always been extremely supportive. And anytime I've struggled, she's always been, there was a time where I literally lived in a house in Loughborough when she went off training, just to give me somewhere to stay because I was struggling, and little things like that so it's awesome. But she's a great friend primarily. And she's got a lot to offer. She's one of those the way I describe Paula is and I try to use it for myself, but she's a can-do person. If you're around Paula Radcliffe, I defy you not to kind of feel like you can do something or achieve. She's very much, if you come to her with a problem, she goes, right, we're going to figure this out. We're going to do it. There's no ifs or buts. It's find a way. She's just that kind of a person, and it's infectious. It's kind of that kind of law of attraction, isn't it, in life, that she brings that. So it's a lot of fun. It's like I feel like it's a couple of mates on a podcast, like you guys.
Yeah.
It's
I don't even
really
like him.
No, do you not like?
No, we do.
You do.
Sorry, Rob.
He loves me. He was at my wedding, just over 12 months ago. So he's got to love me.
I've only met Rob 10 times, and
we've only met in person probably 15 times, if that.
Oh, really?
But we meet on a weekly basis to do the podcast. It's
that thing surrounding yourself with positive people, though, isn't it?
Positivity breeds positivity. I'm a massive believer in that.
Yeah, and that's why running's great. We all the people that are finishing the top 10 in London Marathon will go through the same set of emotions as someone running 6 hours. It's just wrapped up. I know that the winning bit, but I'm telling you, like, you do well in big races. All it is an endorphin rush when it comes down to it. And that endorphin rush equally comes from people that feel like, if not bigger, from people that feel like, I can't run a marathon. So it's that culture of respect. There's so many, and that's the other thing the podcast has done. People are talking about things, and we're learning. That we wanted it to be an open forum where people could teach us, because fundamentally in marathon running, no one's an expert, actually, even if you're the world record holder, because actually a world record has a very specific type of experiences. They're not going to have the experiences someone who's literally spent 30 years never running and then has come to running, or 40 years and not run. That, you know, it's a different journey. And that's where I think it's brilliant. So we spend a lot of time asking people, how have you done things? How do you deal with things? How do you feel? And everyone is bringing unique things to the table, which I think that's culturally is priceless. And I think it's not going to stop, because until, you know, we're not going to stop till everyone's run a marathon. Just if everyone in the world ran a marathon, I think the world would be a better place. I think everyone would chill out a bit. Stop
so
squabbling.
humbling.
When
so
everyone stops
compulsory.
squabbling, they'll be like, I don't care, I've run a marathon.
People walking around with the medals around.
Exactly. But I do want to. I need to. I mean, not now, but I will. I need to get back into it a little bit, because obviously now that I've retired, I haven't done it. I'm the most unfit I've ever been in my life.
Well, this was the question of, are you running now? Are you retired? Have you got time?
No, I have. It's the time thing. I will get back into it. I know the thing I know, and I know this from other athletes. If the longer I leave, I think Alex Ferguson said this to Eric Cantona in a quote of, I think it was a letter to him that said, don't stop keeping fit, because if you leave it for too long, it becomes really tough, to the point where you probably find it too tough to get back into it.
Yeah.
And a lot of athletes have said that to me, don't leave it too long and try and hold it. Because if I have done a few runs, I had a suspected hernia, which I don't. And I can feel, if I go out for a run now, I did a run on the day George was born, on that morning, as a ritual thing, went out for half an hour. And I still, you know, even though I'm run for 6 months, I still feel like a runner, but I know if I wait another year, that will go. So I need to get out the door, and I need to tap into it. So I don't.
If you're doing a running podcast, you have to run. That's what I've found. This is what's keeping me motivated.
True, yeah.
The only reason why I run is because I can't come onto a podcast talking about running if I haven't run.
So this is, well, maybe you just, if you don't run, change it to the subject matter of what you are doing.
Yeah. Eating. I could do a podcast about eating. I could do a podcast about most things, to be
fair. Food would be a good podcast. So there you go.
Yeah. How are you fixed? Do you want to fancy doing one with me? Have you got any time for spare that me and you could do a podcast, Chris, on eating?
Yeah. I've got a slot between 3 and 4 a.m.
whilst feeding the baby.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do it while he's feeding. I'll tell you exactly what he's having. He's a combination of 90% breast milk with the odd bit of formula.
This is the most we've ever spoken to a guest. And I've got so many more questions. I literally got a list of questions I've got here, but I haven't gone through any of them. And I really appreciate your time. No, don't worry at all. I really appreciate your time. And I know how precious time is at the minute with having a newborn. And we pulled you away from the joys of probably trying to get them to sleep. But thank you very much for coming on.
That's not a problem. I probably I have a, and this is where, again, with the podcast, I have a tendency to go on and on, so I get edited a lot on ours, which helps.
No,
but I need to.
I'm thinking I'm going to spread it over 2 episodes. I've never done that before, so I'm going to potentially spread it over 2 episodes. But
if you want a 3rd episode for the questions, then for the actual questions, then we could. It's one of the. Do you know what? It's when you've been doing this for like 30 years, it's hard to nutshell things, because your brain goes to all these other stories and you think that and that and that, and it's like, and if you enjoy it enough, you don't want to stop talking about it. I think that's half of it as well.
No, and I think this is the thing we said I don't know whether we said it before we came on or during, I don't know. It's all merged into one, but it's such a great conversation, and I think we are hugely grateful for you sharing like all of your stories, your emotions.
You've been so open as well.
Absolutely everything that you've shared with us, because that's what we love, like open, honest conversations with real, relatable people, and continuing to share that will hopefully contribute to our aim of the podcast, which is to inspire people to get into running and continue that journey. So thank you so much, and thank you for giving me one of my best ever running moments of watching.
I've got one more question. So I know you're going to speak to Paul about coming on. She'd love to come on. I'm pretty sure she would. Who would be somebody else that you think would be good to speak to on the podcast, that you've either spoken to yourself in passing or on the podcast yourself as well? And who would be your dream guest to ever speak to?
Hang on, for you guys or for us, do you mean?
But for us and for you. because then I can clip it up on Instagram and put it on there and can tag them in it to make them sure they come on it.
Okay. Right, let me think about this. Who would I say would be a good one for you guys to have? I think, do you know what? Like, I think, because we'd love to have this person on as well. I think Emil Caress, the guy that was fourth at the Olympics.
Yeah.
We really want to get him on, and the reason I say that is because he's such a nice guy. He's a top lad. He's a phenomenal runner. And I think in some ways his fourth place at Olympics doesn't get shouted about enough. It did, but it needs more. I think he's just and he was third at London Marathon last year. Unfortunately, he's pulled out this one, and I just think he's the people's champion and he's an actual champion. It's like Ronnie O'Sullivan in snooker. Like he's. I just think he's just a real scholar of marathon running and just loves marathon running through and through. And so we really want to get him on. So I would say. So tag him in.
Tell you what, if we get Emil Caress before you get Emil Caress, we'll do a trade. You can have Emil and we'll have Paulie.
Are you talking about holding guests hostage?
Yeah, no. We'll do like Pokemon trading. But I'm genuinely looking. When I was looking at, I do research before guests come on, and one of the things that came out loud and clear for yourself, Chris, was that you've been defined as the runner's runner. Because people look up to you as that person that if anything's possible, like you say, with the injuries that you went through, the comebacks that you made, the going to Kew Gardens and getting the Olympic place. So you have been. If you look on Google and just put your name in, you come up as the runner's runner.
I'm sure you've done that.
Do you know what? Genuinely, and there's a bombshell. I stopped doing it after I had an incident with Beetroot at the Great South, because when my name came up, it was just me covered in red poo. And I'm scared to do it now. So I haven't in a long time, because that was for a while, that was the kind of link. But do you know what? And this is, again, genuine. I don't do it because I don't know why. I think, the Verve. Sorry, I'm using analogy. The Verve album, Urban Hymns.
Mm-hmm.
I love that album for a lot of reasons. It's almost like my life kind of go-to. I loved it as a kid, but there's a song in there called Lucky Man. Mm-hmm. And when I was growing up, all my running mates took the mick out of me because I used to sing it and sing it terribly. I'm unlucky, and I'm just tone deaf, and I'd sing it. And there's a line in there where it says, I'm stood here naked, smiling, feeling no disgrace. And it's like, that's how I feel. It's like I'm kind of weirdly feel enough with what I have around me, friends and family and that. And so that's part of why I don't look at it, because I'm like, well, I'm pretty happy just stood here smiling, naked, feeling no disgrace. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
by the way, listeners, he isn't naked.
I'm naked. Well, check YouTube if you put this on just to make certain. But all you can see is my top half. You don't know what's below. So it's kind of a bit corny, but I do kind of, and that's what running's done for me, I would say. So thank you, but I don't tend to, unless there's a reason for it, until I'm looking for something. But in terms of me, a dream guest, going back to that one, who would I love to have? I mean, there's so many. But I think, see, my brain goes to, if you're really giving me anything, my brain sort of goes to like almost like celebrity status. Like, if there's one person, it's like a dinner guest. If it's a podcast, I'd almost rather this person at a dinner guest rather than a podcast. But if I could interview Ricky Gervais, he is my absolute hero when it comes to, his comedy, like The Office, all his shows. Like, he helps me, again, being corny, not take life too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And he revolutionized humor. And him and the other person, if I can have two, and I know you didn't give me two.
You can have two.
John Cleese.
Them two together, that would be amazing.
John Cleese. I lived in Eugene, right? Small little, I say small. It's not a particularly massive town in America in terms of, yes, it's got the university and it's got the history with Nike, but as a town, it's not huge. So it doesn't have massive venues outside of the university stuff. And my coach, Mark Rowland, and his family lived in Eugene, obviously, while he was coaching us there. And he contacted me, he goes, Chris, you're not going to believe who's doing a stand-up in this. It's literally no bigger than 500 people arena down the road in Eugene. It was John Cleese. I was like, you're kidding me. And I watched John Cleese do a stand-up in this, like literally 500 people. And he stood there, he just spoke for an hour and a half. Hilarious that the whole thing started. He came on and he had like this scrolling pictures of Big Macs going across the screen. And he said, his opening line was, "You're probably all wondering what the heck I'm doing in Eugene and why I'm doing these gigs. It's because I've just had another divorce and I need to fund it. And she wants 20 million or something out of me." And then he said that and he goes, "These Big Macs representing, I don't know why she needs 20 million, but this is the amount of Big Macs she could buy." And he started like putting up things, all these things she could buy. He's like, "Why does she need this amount of money from me? I don't get it. She could have this many Big Macs." And he started putting up things of, why do you need this amount of money? But now I'm doing these gigs. And it was just hilarious. It was just, but yeah, so him, John Cleese and
Well, if you're having
Ricky
John
Gervais.
Cleese, you've got to have Manuel serving the food, right?
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
About
Andrew
40
Sachs.
hours.
Yeah.
Get that done.
Yeah, because the thing is, I know Monty Python in terms of, but I just think John Cleese and I think with comedy you can almost trace that kind of Monty Python, John Cleese era defined comedy for decades, and I think Ricky's done the same.
Similar, yeah.
So many comedy things now, and I'm listening to it going, that sounds like Ricky. There's so many comedy things that links back to how Ricky defined that kind of awkward kind of comedy stuff.
In the Office when he was doing all the stuff. When the Office came, nobody knew him before he came on the Office, and then everybody's copying his kind of patter that he does. Yeah, absolutely.
I did, you know what, as well, and I forget I did this, but when the Office first started, it took me about 3 watches. I couldn't watch it because I took it too seriously as a documentary. It's like, oh, this is cringing, before you eventually let go. And then you realise it's a comedy. But it took me about 3 episodes to let go of the fact that, hang on, this is not a documentary, and it was cringing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, hang on, no, I can relax into it now. How brilliant is that as a comedy? Just fantastic. So yeah, them 2, please.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best. I can't promise anything, but I'll do my best. I'll try and get them on the podcast.
It'll be easier if either of them wanted to run a marathon.
Yeah. Well, I think Ricky Gervais is a runner. I think he doesn't run a lot, but I think he is a runner.
Yeah, I think he does bits to keep fit just for tours. I think I see bits of him playing. I think he plays like a racket sport in his garden or something like that. Like I stalk him, but I don't know if he's run a full marathon. But yeah, I think he's. Yeah, he does something just to keep fit. 'Cause one of his stand-up I went to, he said about how he has medicals before he can do it. So, because you realise when the amount of stuff they do, they got to be fit. I mean, they're doing gig after gig after gig for a long time. You know, you got to watch your health. So yeah. Anyway,
thank you very much. We said thank you about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. And then I went off on one, sorry.
Don't worry, absolutely fine. But really, genuinely, thank you for spending such a long time with us, talking about everything that you've gone through, being so open and honest and raw with your emotion. Really appreciate your time. It's been really good. And it's so, like I said to you before, it's so nice to speak to you as you, because you see things that you see on television, you see on Instagram, you see things that, and you put people on a pedestal, but you are such a nice, genuine person that you can have a conversation with down the pub. It just felt like I was having a conversation down the pub. So massive thank you.
I wish I was down the pub.
That's it now. That's not going to happen for a while.
Oh, I know. Just listen. I know. I can't afford to even have one in case it ruins my night's sleep, and I'm just already like.
Don't do it.
It breaks your heart because my other kid's now 4, and he comes in and he jumps on you, and you're just so tired, and it's like he's so happy to see you, and it just melts you, and you're like literally just you're seeing like stars in your eyes, and he's like, "Daddy, come on, let's go and get some breakfast." Yeah, can I have 5 minutes? No, and it's like, and then everything's a game. Everything, can we get out? No, and then everything to him is a game, and it reminds you just to kind of. Just don't take your fatigue too seriously because it's just he is brilliant. I know you won't, but you can put it on, but it's like I'm dragging on. But before we came on, so I needed that half an hour. He loves this game now where he hides in plain sight. So I went out to go get him, and he's hidden under his duvet in the middle of his room, and he's under there, and I know what he wants me to do. So I walk in, I'm like, "Where's Theo?" And all I can hear is him giggling. And I have to spend 5 minutes pretending to look for him. I'm like, Mum, where is he? I can't find. Is he gone? Has he gone down the shops? And he's just there under his duvet, just giggling away. And you're like, all I wanted him to get into bed, turn the light off, and I'm like, I don't want to ruin that bubble because he's having so much fun. And he's like, to him, it's like every second of the day is just a laugh, and it's like, but we get wrapped up in this kind of hit times, and we got to do this to keep ourselves sane. And a kid just reminds you that, you know what, wrap yourself in a duvet, line him into the floor, and pretend you're invisible, and just see what happens.
My daughter does it the same. Billy, she's 4, same age, and her bedroom's here. And she'll go into bed and she'll run off and she'll go, gotta go and hide. Exactly the same thing. She hides in her wardrobe.
Okay.
So her fingers are like in the door with the wardrobe, and I'm walking around going, where's Billy? Where's Billy? And one time I couldn't see the fingers. I couldn't see her. So I opened the wardrobe and she got this pink canvas bag, and she put the canvas bag over her head and then closed the wardrobe. And I was like, she's taking it to another level now.
Extreme hide and seek. There's a game show in that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to say again, thank you for coming on, Chris. No, it's fine. Absolutely brilliant. Really have enjoyed it. It's been so insightful, so nice to actually have a conversation. It's been really good, so thank you.
No worries, boys. And I promise I will mention it to Paula, just to bear in mind time and all that. But yeah, I will.
If it's next 12 months, in the next 12 months, if it's 2 years, we'll carry on doing the podcast just to get Paula Radcliffe on. So if you can get her on, that'd be brilliant.
No worries.
Thank you.